There's only one cure.
Return the slab, or suffer my...
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I have a special one for you. Something that I've been working on for the past couple weeks here. And as I promised in the previous videos, it is another iceberg. Today's topic, the disturbing cartoon episodes iceberg. Now I feel like this one hasn't really been done justice in the past, or not that I can see of recent, so I wanted to correct that and put my own thoughts towards it. Now, normal iceberg rules do apply to this iceberg as well, but just in case you aren't familiar, I'll put that one up on screen for you right now just so you can get a refresher. Starting at the sky, we will go from the not so serious episodes, and as we dive downwards towards the depths and underbelly of the iceberg, the episodes will become much more sinister and creepy, some even just downright deranged. Maybe best to keep your kids away from this one. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and let me be your host on the journey through the disturbing cartoon episodes iceberg. The Sky. Cat Dog. Teeth for Two. Released 16th of October, 1999. Cat Dog was honestly one of my favourite shows growing up in Australia. I'd watch every day, rushing home from school just to catch the next episode. Cat Dog was created by Peter Hannon and first aired on April 4th, 1998. The show starred Cat as well. Cat. And Dog as, yep, you guessed it, Dog. Conjoined twins at birth who shared their adventures and life struggles living together. The show was praised highly by watchers and Nickelodeon, being extremely successful alongside shows like SpongeBob SquarePants. There was an episode of the show that, while not the most disturbing, still probably wasn't suitable for young audiences at the time. The episode I'm referring to goes by the name Teeth for Two, featured in Season 3 of the show. Just the title artwork alone, looking back now, was kinda creepy. This particular episode begins with our duo visiting the local dentist, run by the same green rabbit, Rancid, who seemingly runs all the businesses in this town. He tells Dog his teeth are perfect, even though he's never once eaten healthy in his entire life, and that Cat's teeth are completely ruined. This scene creeps me out when he just yanks Cat's mouth open and you see the corn kernel looking teeth inside. Absolutely disgusting. The dentist tells Cat he needs to get Dog to stop eating so unhealthy, or his teeth will never recover. Long story short, Dog chooses not to eat right, and so begins the creepy part of this episode. Dog and Cat start fighting amongst themselves, trying to do as much damage to each other's teeth as possible. This one scene where Dog just chews down on aluminium foil makes my spine tingle, and I just feel so gross all over, like nails down a chalkboard. But these aren't even the scenes that got this into the iceberg in the first place. The following scene, you can see Dog is fast asleep, and Cat tries to brush his teeth without him knowing, but fails miserably due to Dog's mouth being wide open and full of food. So, Cat has this ingenious plan of literally going inside out of his own body and appearing a gory, meaty mess out of Dog's mouth. This scene scared the hell out of young audiences and probably shouldn't have been this grotesquely animated. I know this one will last with me for a lifetime, that's for sure. Pokemon Sun and Moon. One journey ends, another begins. Released the 1st of July, 2017. An anime that doesn't need any introduction. Pokemon is an extremely long-running series that has pulled the attention of children and adults across multiple generations. Being first seen created by Nintendo as a game back in February 1996 for the original Game Boy, and sparking many movies, animes, and card games spanning the entire globe. Along the way, we follow Ash's journey and story, and there have been many ups and downs as he has gone across the Pokemon world with his beloved Pikachu. But this particular episode from Sun and Moon series took a much darker approach than we had previously seen in the series thus far. The episode begins with Ash and Pikachu shopping for food, when all of a sudden, Litten appears out of nowhere and steals his donut-looking thing out of Ash's hand. I don't know what this is. After a short chase scene, they discover that Litten is stealing food for a homeless Stoutland, with the Stoutland trying to teach Litten the move Firefang in return for said food. The very next day, Ash returns to the Stoutland to find him collapsed on the ground and struggling to breathe. Ash immediately carries Stoutland to the nearest Pokemon Center. Anyone else get creeped out by the fact that all Nurse Joys look exactly the same, sound exactly the same, and they just terrifyingly the exact same person? Nurse Joy goes on to inform Ash of Stoutland's health issues and is unsure if he will make a recovery. Later in the night, the Stoutland and Litten take off from the Pokemon Center entirely. Once they return to the bridge, Stoutland continues to try to teach Litten Firefang, but sadly both of them get really exhausted and fall asleep right next to each other. Now, as the episode progresses, we are shown a tree next to Stoutland's couch, which seems to be representing Stoutland's remaining life energy. And it's represented by the fact that every single time a leaf falls off, Stoutland becomes closer and closer to death. This is where it gets dark and honestly just downright depressing. When the final leaf falls, Litten realizes that Stoutland has passed away. Watching this recently made me cry. Like, screw you, Pokemon, Jesus. As this is happening, it begins to rain and Litten cries out. Ash does attempt to feed the little guy, but Litten just downright refuses to eat, consumed by grief. But in the end, he eventually does join Ash's team and even learns Firefang. So, I mean, at least there's a happy ending. Damn, Pokemon, okay. This is kind of the first time we get to see the darker sides of life for the Pokemon universe. It's been touched on slightly before, like in Cubone's Mother episode from Pokemon Origins, but nothing this deep or personal, earning it a spot in this iceberg purely because of how dark and depressing this episode became. Batman Beyond Earth Mover, released 25th of September, 1999. Batman has been a staple in children and adults' lives since his creation and the DC universe as a whole, when he first appeared back in May 1939. Originally created by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger, Batman is no stranger to horrible events or dark undertones inside of the DC universe. And I'd argue that in recent times, he's not exactly appropriate for younger kids or audiences in general. But back in 1999, I'm sure many children, myself included, were more than a bit creeped out by one episode and one character in particular. The episode is from the Earth Mover series, which was episode 15 in the season. The show starts out with a teenage girl named Jackie, one of Batman's friends, explaining that she felt like someone was watching and stalking her. Batman then goes on to chase down the figure, but is unsuccessful in his attempts. The next day, Bill, Jackie's adopted father, tells her that he thinks it might be her real dad trying to get back at him, then goes on to explain the story of how her real father and him had previously been friends many years prior, and how a tragic accident, which resulted in a collapsed tunnel and a shit ton of toxic waste, sadly caught Jackie's father at the bottom, and was covered up by debris, as well as being consumed by toxic waste. Bill tells Jackie that's why he adopted her, as he believed her father to have died before his very eyes, and knew she needed a home and in some ways felt like it was the right thing to do seeing as she was only just a child at the time. All those scenes aside, moving into the ones that actually spark controversy. It turns out Earth Mover, the enemy causing the earthquakes throughout the city and responsible for Jackie being stalked, was actually Jackie's father. Well, I don't know if this counts as her dad anymore. With green pulsing veins and basically a skeleton zombie-ish body, this scene scared the hell out of young audiences. His voice was also just the icing on the cake in this one.
Not accident. Not accident.
Now, obviously, as an adult now, the scene isn't anything special, seeing the skeletal man pulsing with green veins and rotting in the dirt, but imagine what it was like for a 6-year-old kid back in the 90s. Certainly made more than a few beg their parents to leave a nightlight on, myself included on that one. The tip of the iceberg. The Misadventures of Flapjack, Knuckles and His Hilarious Problem. Released 20th of August, 2009. In the past, it's been observed that many children's shows and cartoons often contain underlying messages beneath the surface of laughter and adventures. These messages are usually intended to teach children valuable life lessons, such as distinguishing right from wrong and how to treat other people. However, few shows delve into the depths of darkness quite like The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, also known as The Misadventures of Flapjack, or simply Flapjack, is an American animated television series created by Thorpe Van Orman for Cartoon Network. It's made its debut in the United States on June 5th, 2008. The series features Van Orman as the voice of Flapjack, an innocent young boy raised by a whale named Bubby, and mentored by a grizzled old pirate named Captain Knuckles. The majority of the show's events take place in Stormalong Harbour, where the trio embark on various adventures in search of the elusive Candy Island. But I'm here to delve into episode 4 from the second season of the series. This particular episode opens with Knuckles, the pirate, struggling with addiction. In the show, they portray his addiction as being related to candy, but its effects are like those of alcohol. This sets the stage for a roller coaster of emotions, as we witness him swapping between laughter, happiness, into sudden outbursts, and ultimately, depressive episodes. All the key factors of alcohol-related addiction. Flapjack eventually comes to the realization that Knuckles has a serious problem. This marks the beginning of a dark and harrowing descent. Knuckles resorts to manipulation, convincing Flapjack that he has his addiction entirely under control. However, it's soon to be that the situation would deteriorate, with Knuckles resorting to stealing candy from children and any other sources he can lay his hands on. In one particular scene, he has become so addicted and so desperate for more candy, he is used as a literal doormat. The moment when he resorts to eating chewing gum from someone else's mouth is particularly unsettling, to say the least. The episode powerfully highlights the struggles of addiction and the profound impact it can have on an individual, from the exhilarating highs to the devastating lows. Most children may perceive this episode as just another quirky adventure, but revisiting it as an adult casts a somber light on the truly distressing nature of the episode. All Grown Up, Interview with a Campfire, released 26th of June, 2004. If you were fortunate enough, or perhaps I should say boomer enough, to have enjoyed Rugrats during your childhood, you might have also tuned into its Nickelodeon follow-up series, All Grown Up. This series continued the adventures of Tommy and his friends, who were now navigating preteen life and the challenges of adolescence. All Grown Up made its debut on April 12, 2003, and ran for a total of 5 seasons. It was a welcomed addition to the Rugrats universe, allowing viewers to grow alongside the characters they had come to love. However, as you'll find is often the case with these icebergs, there was one episode that ventured into darker and downright eerie territory. The episode begins by introducing Tommy and his friends to Camp Everwood, along with a new character named Bean Madison. Bean kicks off the night with a discussion of various horror stories supposedly associated with the camp. Tommy seizes this opportunity to create his own horror movie during their camping trip. As the night unfolds, it seems that the tales start to manifest as reality when children begin disappearing from the camp and its surroundings. As the mystery deepens, it's revealed that Bean, the kid who showed up around Camp Everwood, is actually the ghost of a boy from 1871 who perished during a particularly brutal winter, and is among one of the many settlers back in 1871 to have perished during that particular winter. It's quite a dark and unexpected turn for a spin-off of Rugrats. Bean had been using Tommy and the others to locate the souls of the other lost settlers, ultimately succeeding, but not before leaving us with a genuinely creepy final few scenes that featured his menacing red eyes and a chilling concluding message just stating, "Don't ever got no brain or nothing." The episode depicts some pretty cliche horror scenes for younger viewers, with undead spirits and, mention of deaths, etc. Although maybe not quite as bad as some of the others on this iceberg to follow, those red eyes of Bean Madison and a lot of the atmosphere was definitely a little more upsetting for younger viewers than people probably first imagined it would be. Jimmy Neutron, One of Us, released 24th of January, 2006. The young genius himself, Jimmy Neutron, hails from the animated series that first entered our screens on July 20th, 2002. Created by Keith Alcorn and John Davies. The show originally went by the name Johnny Cusack, before being changed to Jimmy Neutron. This series follows the journey of Jimmy and his friends as they embark on wild adventures driven by his ingenious inventions, taking them through their local town and beyond. At first glance, the show appears unassuming and generally maintains a pretty family-friendly and lighthearted tone. However, one episode from Season 3 ventured into somewhat creepier territory. The episode begins with Sheen excitedly sharing a new TV program he's been watching, the Happy Show Show, claiming that it can make people happier. What a very strange premise 10 seconds into this episode. Meanwhile, Jimmy continues with his everyday routine of photoshopping his and his crush's heads into wedding photos. A slightly odd choice of activity, I know. Sheen, however, persists in trying to get Jimmy to watch the Happy Show again. Over the course of the next day, Jimmy starts to notice something off about everyone in town. They all appear unusually happy and excessively friendly with each other. For example, Libby in this one scene in particular. Very unsettling. His crush eventually convinces Jimmy to watch the show that everyone keeps raving on about. The show itself features an elderly lady named Grandma Taters, but Jimmy quickly turns this off due to it being so terrible quality. The following night, he visits Betty's house after everyone, including Betty herself, urges him to watch the show yet again. It becomes evident that the show is somehow hypnotizing everyone in town, and soon every single person in said town is after Jimmy. He crosses paths with Cindy, who has been away from town and unaffected by the hypnotic influence of the TV show, and together they team up to locate Grandma Taters. Upon confronting and defeating her, it's revealed that she's actually an alien and there are actually many Grandma Taters. The plot takes a very surreal turn here. Taters then quickly leaves the planet, but before she departs, she leaves us with a pretty cryptic statement.
We'll be back.
As an adult looking back, this episode may not be the scariest or the creepiest, but I can imagine that as a child, the eerie smiles, the creepy voices, and the unsettling stares of the characters in general would have been more than a little disturbing. It's reminiscent of the kind of unsettling atmosphere found in movies like Smile, of which I watched recently, would not recommend. And honestly, thinking about it now, I can see how maybe this episode may have inspired that movie in general. The Body. Samurai Jack and the Haunted House. Released 17th of May, 2003. As many of you may already know, Samurai Jack has always catered to a more mature audience, featuring themes that are both violent and suggestive throughout its running time. The series initially premiered on Cartoon Network and later moved to Adult Swim, created by Gendy Tartakovsky in 2001. The show follows the journey of Jack, the samurai, in a cartoon version of feudal Japan as he pursues the demon known as Aku. In the third season of the series, there's an appropriately titled episode called Haunted House. The episode starts out with Jack being alone and wandering during the night. He stumbles upon a distressed little girl. She then promptly flees as he approaches, leading him to an old and eerie-looking house. While exploring the house, Jack experiences multiple visions of the previous owners, all of whom fell victim to a mysterious and violent entity. Already, this is set up to be quite unsettling in these scenes. Jack eventually finds the girl hiding within the house, but to their surprise, they discover that all the doors and windows have vanished. Deciding to spend the night, Jack wakes up to find the girl mysteriously gone, with only eerie sounds and music coming from somewhere in the distance. He stumbles upon a well-lit room, only to find the little girl surrounded by what appears to be her family members. They invite him for tea and light conversation, and Jack lowers his guard. However, things take a deeply unsettling turn as one of the family members' eyes roll back into their skull, followed by some eerie music and room alternating between decayed and a well-lit state. The transformation extends to all the family members, who hunch back, drooling profusely. The scene becomes even more disturbing, as their mouths emit a shadowy black bile, and in an instant, their bodies are obliterated, leaving behind a very violent-looking demon. Jack does ultimately defeat the demon and lays the family's troubled spirits to rest, but the scenes in this episode are so graphic and definitely not suitable for children. I must admit, even as an adult, this particular episode left me feeling quite unnerved, especially with the way that the demon was depicted in that black and white scene when he's fighting. It's undeniably one of the darker episodes in the entire series. Mr. Meaty, Mooch Master P. Released 6th of October, 2006. When it comes to Nickelodeon shows, very few stand out as much as the sitcom puppetry series Mr. Meaty. A very unique creation that's nestled under the label comedy horror puppetry, and yeah, I did read that right, I had to double check. Let me just give you a quick summary. Mr. Meaty is a puppet show crafted by Jamie Shannon and Jason Hopley. The show revolves around two teenage boys, one Josh Redgrove and the other Parker Dinkelman, who find themselves working away at a fast food restaurant called Mr. Meaty inside of a shopping mall. In their day-to-day routine, they regularly encounter the supernatural, or just simply the bizarre. Only 2 seasons of the show were aired on Nickelodeon, with the first episode premiering on September 22, 2006. Now, I could dedicate an entire iceberg of its own purely to this show, but today, I want to spotlight one that I believe is the worst episode and generally one of the most horrific episodes they've ever released. The episode begins with Parker mooching. If you're not familiar with the term, don't worry. I had to check the wiki while writing this one up. It essentially means asking for or obtaining something without paying for it, particularly in this case, food. Josh, his friend, becomes fed up with Parker's food-stealing ways and decides to serve him a raw meat patty. Food poison be damned, I guess. However, instead of ending Parker's mooching ways, something bizarre occurs. Every piece of food Parker attempts to consume vanishes. The two friends decide to film the event in slow motion and capture a stomach-turning sight. A gigantic worm emerges from Parker's mouth. Yeah, from his mouth, you saw that. Apparently, a colossal tapeworm has been living inside of Parker's stomach. They eventually managed to remove this monstrosity by fishing it out. But instead of just getting rid of it or killing it, an Australian man by the name of Larry decides to show up and proceeds to devour the worm whole, claiming it tickles on the way down. Yeah, tickles. Interesting. The very idea of a gigantic worm living inside of my body is just disgusting. The scene where Larry just consumes the worm without a second thought just makes me feel super uneasy and queasy. While researching for this episode, I realized that many others shared the same feelings towards it. Nickelodeon certainly knows how to choose its content, it would seem. Courage the Cowardly Dog, King Ramsay's Curse, released 7th of January, 2000. Courage the Cowardly Dog is a beloved classic among us 90s kids, and the endearing pink pooch holds a special place in the hearts of many to this day. The show was first created on November 12, 1999, thanks to the creative genius of one John R. Dilworth, a legendary figure who has contributed to numerous titles on both Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network alike. It's really no wonder that Courage finds its place into this iceberg, given that the show itself falls under the genre of teen comedy horror. I'm starting to wonder if they add comedy to the beginning of these just to get away with the more suggestive horror themes that come with them. Today, I'll be looking into a very well-known episode from season 1 of the series, known only as King Ramsay's Curse. The episode kicks off with Eustace discovering an ancient historical relic in the form of a stone slab. He finds out from the news station report that it's worth a small fortune, $1 million to be exact. Museum representatives attempt to retrieve the slab from Eustace, but unfortunately he just slams the door in their face. Absolute Giga Chad behavior right there. However, this is where the episode's eerie and more unsettling aspects come into play. Later that night, Courage and his owner hear a peculiar noise coming from the front door. Upon investigation, they encounter an incredibly creepy 3D modeled King Ramsay, accompanied by an eerie soundtrack and him repeating the phrase,
"Return the slab, or suffer my curse,"
over and over. This episode, with its unnerving animations, music, and King Ramsay's voice, left a deep and dark impression on younger audiences. It's very easy to see why Courage the Cowardly Dog is rightfully classified as comedy horror show, although I would probably lean more heavy towards the horror part. The bottom of the iceberg. SpongeBob SquarePants, Nasty Patty, released the 1st of March, 2002. This iceberg wouldn't be complete without mention of SpongeBob SquarePants. This lovable yellow sponge made his debut on May 1st, 1999. Created by marine science educator Steven Hillenburg for Nickelodeon. SpongeBob is an award-winning animated series with a remarkably long runtime, and it has left a very lasting impact, giving rise to movies, memes, and shared shorts that continue to entertain viewers all over the internet. However, today, I'm here to discuss a particular episode that took an unexpectedly dark turn, even going as far as delving into themes of murder and hiding bodies. The episode opens with scenes of the Krusty Krab, where Mr. Krab gets wind of a health inspector's visit. The health inspector orders one of everything on the menu, and after sampling a very large selection of items, requests one final Krabby Patty. Just as they're about to celebrate for a health inspection pass, a news report reveals that there's a fake health inspector in Bikini Bottom, who's been stealing food from restaurants. Mr. Krab decides to exact revenge on this health inspector imposter by creating a green and poisonous Krabby Patty. However, the health inspector doesn't actually consume the burger. but instead chokes on a fly, slips over on the burger sauce, and then smashes his head on a table. Now, with the health inspector looking rather dead, Mr. Crab then follows this up by saying that we've now killed him, me boy. And as it turns out, it was the genuine health inspector, not the imposter, setting the stage for the darker elements of this episode. To hide evidence of the deceased fish, SpongeBob and Mr. Crab attempt to bury him. SpongeBob accidentally throws a rock after trying to dig him a grave and knocks the health inspector out a second time. The police arrive shortly after they bury the body, and it seems the ordeal is now over. SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are even asked if they could fetch drinks for the officers back at the Krabby Patty. An unexpected rain shower, however, it rains underwater, under the ocean like that, but anyway, which leads to the half-buried corpse to slide down the hill. SpongeBob then hurls the body into the back of the police car, looking very visibly shaken up. In the next few scenes, we witness SpongeBob dragging the lifeless corpse around the back of the building while the officers enjoy their drinks. Everything seems fine until SpongeBob hides the body in the freezer, as Mr. Krabs had requested prior. Just as the police officers ask to grab some ice from the freezer, the body vanishes when they open the door. And in its place, they discover what appears to be a zombie version of the health inspector. The police officers proceed to brutally subdue him by beating him unconscious for a third time, this poor guy. But they find out that the health inspector is indeed alive, absolving them of their crime of murder, thankfully. The episode concludes with the health inspector even passing the store. I don't know whether that be out of fear of his life or if the food was generally okay. This episode is undeniably dark and extremely disturbing, even with the cheesy twist of the inspector being alive at the end anyway. The step-by-step guide on murder and hiding the body within the context of SpongeBob SquarePants is an unusual choice for a plot, to say the least. I guess we can only hope that no one turned out to be a murderer after watching this episode. At least, I hope not, anyway. Ren and Stimpy, Man's Best Friend. Released 23rd of June, 2003. Now, there's always been a subject of debate when it comes to Ren and Stimpy, regarding whether or not it's appropriate for children. If I were to do an iceberg completely on one topic, this show would fill every single tier. Ren and Stimpy was brought to this world by John Kricfalusi on August 11, 1991. It revolves around the antics of Ren, a psychotic chihuahua, and Stimpy, a cheerful but exceedingly stupid cat. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I didn't realize that Stimpy was a cat until literally making this. The more you know, I guess. But today, I want to look at one particular episode, Man's Best Friend, which was literally outright banned by Nickelodeon. The episode starts out pretty ordinarily. A man named George Liquor is walking along the sidewalk. What an extremely American last name, by the way. Holy hell. He comes across Ren and Stimpy sleeping in a pet store window and believes he should do the right thing by adopting these animals. So he does just that. And that's when the cartoon takes a disturbing turn. Ren and Stimpy are awakened by war trumpets as a now drill sergeant dressed George enters the room. He insists that the pets need discipline if they want to remain in his home. This evolves into an uncomfortable scene when George is handling Ren, trying to get him to poop on a newspaper. It's an incredibly strange and awkward moment, to say the least. Ren, according to the show's wiki, is doing butt push-ups in this scene, before George decides he's had enough and uses his hand to lift Ren's rear and physically assist in the process. I'm beginning to see why this episode was banned. To add to this already quite dark and bizarre episode, there's a puzzling debate about whether the dog treats in question are cigars or literal pieces of poop. According to the show, they are toy cigars, but the representation definitely leaves a lot to the imagination. The episode goes on to depict the pair being taught not to climb on the couch, and then scenes of Ren violently attacking his new owner with a piece of wood. At the end of the episode, the trio decide to put a cigar treat in their mouth and sit there in their underwear and dance together. Wow, what a crazy episode this was. This episode in particular left me pretty bewildered, that's how I'd describe it, and it was very, very, very unsettling. Having to watch a man who seems to have a scat fetish manhandle the dog's butt really just set me on a course for the rest of this episode. I don't even know how to explain what I watched. Nickelodeon definitely seems to have crossed a line here, and I'm not shocked that this episode was banned. Invader Zim, Dark Harvest. Released 20th of April, 2001. It's probably no surprise to anyone that Invader Zim found its way into this iceberg. This show was brought to life on March 30th, 2001, and aired on Nickelodeon. It was the idea of cartoonist and animator Johannan Vasquez. While the series had a decent runtime, it eventually got the boot from Nickelodeon due to its intense mature themes, violence, and mentions and features of gore. One of these episodes particularly grotesque and dark in the series was called Dark Harvest. Keep in mind that this show was created for children, by the way, which is about to become a lot more alarming as we go down further. The episode starts off with Zim needing a checkup at the school nurse due to a case of head pigeon. Zim becomes concerned after seeing human biology in the biology class, as none of his organs match or even remotely resemble human ones. So, in a turn of events that nobody expected in a children's show, by the way, Zim begins stealing organs from the other kids and replacing them with random household objects. Now, the school becomes a very bizarre scene, with students appearing severely ill, understandably, and barely able to speak, in some cases drooling from the mouth and just walking around like zombies. At one point, there's a scene where he replaces someone's brain with a can of poop, which makes me wonder about all of these cartoons and their fascination with poop in general. Dib, Zim's human rival, finally confronts Zim, only to discover that Zim has transformed into a grotesque monster. Human organs are literally falling out of his mouth, and stomach acids are dripping everywhere. Now it's becoming very clear why the show was booted from Nickelodeon. There's not much more to say about this one, and it certainly leaves one wondering what Nickelodeon was smoking when they let this air to younger audiences back in 2001. Just wanted to put out a quick disclaimer. The Abyss from here on out will have events featuring extremely dark topics that may or may not be upsetting to some of the viewers. Topics include mention of suicide, killings, and substance abuse. The Abyss. Pingu's Dream, released 1991. I'm more than fairly certain this little penguin needs no introductions. The little black and white penguin who speaks in gibberish and shouts. Originally airing in 1990, produced by the company Trick Film Studio, the claymation follows the adventures of Pingu and his family from episode to episode, being rated highly amongst children and a beloved memory in most 90s children's minds. Unfortunately, one episode would leave a mark on children around the world, and not for the right reasons, even earning itself a ban from being aired entirely. The episode begins with Pingu getting read a bedtime story by his mother, before drifting off into a peaceful sleep. As he opens his eyes, the entire igloo he lives in creepily lifts up and starts drifting off like a UFO. Right after this, his bed decides to grow legs and carry him off into the distance. Now, this has all been pretty tame so far, but that's when the real horror begins. As Pingu continues on, a creepy and rather large walrus can be seen stalking him from behind. I mean, just take a look at this guy's entrance further ahead. I don't know if it's the human-like teeth or the way he sniffs the air, almost as if to say, "You're gonna be my dinner." Anyway, with creepy synth music now playing and a giant walrus pulling at Pingu's body, contorting him into all shapes and sizes, he decides to manically laugh to himself after every single interaction with Pingu. Before long, the bed tries to make a break for it, to be stopped by the walrus, who immediately picks up the mattress and just consumes it on the spot, laughing again to himself. Pingu makes a break for his life and slips down a mountain before finally waking up from his nightmare and crying into his mother's arms. Yeah, I know. What a crazy fucking end to this episode. I'm not sure what their producers were thinking with this one. This is certainly in no way appropriate for children. And to top it all off, this was an ending to a season. As you can probably tell, the episode was banned, and yeah, no shocker on that one. Tom and Jerry, Blue Cat Blues, released 16th of November, 1956. The age-old tale of the cat and mouse rivalry. Tom and Jerry, the duo who was responsible for your parents' entertainment growing up and even extended into the 2000s. Fondly remembered by many, myself included. Originally created all the way back in the 1940s by one William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, starting out as comedy shorts. The show was all smooth sailing for many years, being regarded as comedy genius due to the over-exaggeration of the characters' body language and expressions. That was until 1956 rolled around and the episode Blue Cat Blues aired. The plot that follows gets dark quite quickly, so fair warning to anybody listening or watching. We start this episode with Tom sitting on the rail tracks, waiting for an oncoming train. The camera pans up and we see Jerry standing above him with the narrator stating, "I tried to help him. It's better this way," before we start to get a glimpse of the past. Tom fell in love with a white cat from down the road and tried everything in his power to win her over, including buying flowers, getting into debt for jewelry and cars, and also at one point referencing selling himself into slavery. Now, all the while, his actions to woo said female cat were being outmatched by another feline named Butch, who was also significantly wealthier than Tom. Inevitably, the female cat does choose Butch, and Tom loses out, drowning his sorrows with milk, which in this show and episode is a reference to getting drunk. Washing himself down the gutter in sorrow. Now we come full circle, and this is where the episode just gets dark. Not only did Tom's girlfriend leave and marry another cat, but Jerry's also does the exact same thing shortly afterwards, leaving both of the beloved characters sitting next to each other on the train tracks, waiting to commit suicide by train. What an insane ending to a completely deranged episode. I know it's from the 1950s, but I never thought I would see mention of suicide in a children's show. Insanity. Absolute insanity. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Same as it never was. Released 19th of March, 2005. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was certainly the starting point for many weebs wanting to wield the katana, and just any Japanese weapon in general. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or TMNT for short, was created back in 1983 by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, with a comic book series being printed in 1984. The show has always been one of dark origins and crime fighting, which gained much popularity being shown by the long running time, movies, and many series spin-offs that followed. However, one episode really took the already dark and unforgiving universe and dropped it further down that well. In season 3 of the animated show, being cryptically named Same as It Never Was, the episode starts out with the TMNT team being ambushed by Ultimate Draco, which now after rewatching this episode, this dude's neck is creepy as hell. I can't get past long necks like this. They're just utterly creepy. I don't know what else to say. Using the Scepter of Time, Draco sends Donatello into the future for his revenge for what the Turtles did to him in previous episodes. Now, Donnie is confused as to what is happening due to everything including the turtle lair and the surrounding areas being run down or just outright destroyed. After almost being arrested, Michelangelo comes to his rescue, explaining that in this future, Shredder has finally won and had enslaved all of humanity, leading Donnie to the first of many casualties in this episode, Master Splinter's grave. Very dark already. Apparently, since Donnie's mysterious disappearance in the past, Master Splinter was forced to give his life to protect the remaining 3 turtles. The pair end up heading to a rebel base put together against Shredder, where they learn that Casey Jones had also died previously to fighting Shredder. Chalk that up as the second death already in this series. The turtles themselves are worse for wear. Most of them just downright missing body parts, or being so horrifically scarred that their body is barely holding together. The team all head out to face down Shredder. But sadly during the scene, Hun, Baxter, and Michelangelo are all killed. Talk about depressing outcomes, holy shit. I feel so bad for anyone's kids who loved Michelangelo. I know he was one of my favorites of the Turtle Squad. But wait, there's more. Leonardo and Raphael are also killed shortly afterwards by Shredder's own daughter. Donnie does finally manage to secure the win by drilling Shredder into chunks with his mech, but holy shit, at what cost? Donnie is suddenly pulled back into his own timeline, leaving April alone in a distant future and leaving fans of the show stunned as to what events even transpired right before their eyes. With so many beloved characters from the show giving up or just downright getting enslaved or killed, this dark dystopian future really did just that, become dark. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle writers really ramped it up with this episode, and I'm shocked it even made it past production. Tiny Toon Adventures 1 Beer, released September 1991. Tiny Toons was a Warner Bros. Looney Tunes spin-off show that aired for around 3 seasons, which featured younger look-alike versions of Bugs, Daffy, and Porky Pig. The trio go on adventures around town and attend Acme School to learn about life growing up. Now, this show seems harmless enough, and you're probably wondering, how did it end up down in the abyss? Well, everything changes when the episode 1 Beer rolled on screens. The episode begins with Buster asking Plucky and Hampton what they'd like to drink. They notice a bottle of beer in the fridge, and Buster thinks they should drink it. Hampton says it's not like Buster to do that, but Buster tells them that today they're going to show the viewers the evils of alcohol. Oh god, it begins already. At the park, Buster opens the beer bottle and dares Plucky and Hampton to drink it. Since Hampton claims darers always go first, he makes Buster take the first sip. After taking the first sip, Buster immediately gets drunk. Hampton and Plucky also take sips and get drunk as well. Need I remind you that this was a children's show? In their drunk stage, they burp and stumble respectively all over the place. To make matters worse, while they're drunk, Buster, Plucky, and Hampton go to a donut shop, and Plucky notices a police car parked outside with the keys still in the ignition. The trio decide to steal the car from the police and go on a joyride while under the effects of alcohol. They take the police car up a mountain past a blue sign that says, "Now leaving reality," and head to the top of Death Mountain, where there is a "Danger Road Out Ahead" sign coming up very, very fast. The trio crash through the sign and drive off of Death Mountain, where the car dives straight to the bottom and lands in a graveyard, where the trio die as we watch their souls ascend from the car wreckage up into the heavens above. What an insane turn of events. I don't even know what to say here. As the cartoon ends, Buster, Plucky, and Hampton take off their angel costumes and turn to the viewers and hope they get the message that drinking alcohol is uncool. Buster ends the episode by asking Plucky, "Do we get to do a funny episode tomorrow?" In which Hampton replies, "I hope so." Now, I'm confused why Warner Bros. Thought that trying to teach kids not to drink by showing them drink driving scenes that result in deaths of their favorite characters was okay. Like, how did this get past approval? Luckily, it was banned shortly after, but I actually didn't believe this one was real at first when I was learning about it. Those last few are really taxing. First off, I want to apologize for taking so long to get this video out. I'm still getting used to the whole creating YouTube video thing. The last iceberg was so phenomenally successful, I can't even put into words how grateful I am about all of it. Thank you for all the feedback, and thank you for all the love and support and all the new subscribers and everyone that's just said wonderful things on the videos. This video is no different. I had so much fun putting it together. The content is very morbid, to say the least, but honestly, I have fun putting the videos together. Obviously, a like and subscribe go a hell of a long way, but not necessary, only if you feel like I've earned it. If there's anything that you think I can do better, or any topics that you'd wish that I would cover, I'm happy to hear about them down in the comments. I reply to literally everything and anything. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one.